Good evening. It's definitely the first time this month. I know that. I was supposed to do this talk the first Thursday. I had a last minute meeting at work, so Peter covered for me. Then the second time, I think was I got sick. Then the week after that, my family was sick. So today's the day. You ready?
And the time is totally appropriate.
It is totally appropriate. And what you opened in Happy Life is very appropriate too. It always matches up. I can take very little credit for the content tonight. It all comes from books of the codification. There's one slide in there that is more of a personal development slide that I didn't invent the concept, but I created the slide. So I'll take credit for that one. But let's jump in. When I say the word refresh, what do we think of? So many meanings to this, yeah? There's a few of them. You have a favorite? Renew. Good, I like that one. Awesome. Update comes to mind too, because hitting refresh on your computer a lot. They're all pretty similar though. Renew though I like. And how does this tie in? How does hitting refresh tie into Spiritism, and why are we talking about it tonight? Because if we think about it, as Spiritists, what's one of our big pillars? Reincarnation, right? Reincarnation is definitely a refresh, a starting over, or a continuation, I should say. We also have a chance to restart every moment. Whatever I'm doing, thinking now leads to the next moment. So I can always refresh my thoughts. I can always refresh my actions. Each night before I go to bed, I can turn it off and wake up refreshed the next morning with a new clean slate. So all these things tie into the evolution of our soul, of our spirit. What I'm reminded of primarily, though, is the concept or the doctrine of reincarnation. Every lifetime that we start over, we're essentially hitting refresh. This life comes to an end at some point. I spend some time on the other side, recovering, getting healthy, educating, learning. By the grace of God, I'm given another life to work on things I haven't finished yet. Starting over exactly where I left off morally, right? There's a slide in here a little bit later, so I won't spoil it now. But essentially, it's not like starting over, being born again. You go from being whoever you were now, morally or character-wise, to becoming, perfect and Christlike in the next life, right? You don't cover that gap, in other words. You still have lots of work. We pick up where we left off. We continue evolving. And I think reincarnation for me, and I would say for a lot of people that share this belief, reincarnation truly helps us understand our current situation, our current lot in life, our affliction, I think the slide says. For many, many years, when I didn't understand reincarnation, when I didn't have the beliefs I've had for decades now, I always thought of life as not being fair in certain situations. Why do 3-year-olds die of cancer? Why do little old ladies get robbed? Why do people that are just miserable and mean to others have so much success? And we could go on with disparities or with what things that seem unfair. But when we think about reincarnation and we think about being created like everybody else, simple and lacking knowledge, and evolving life after life, whatever we're facing in this life is my own doing, your own doing. We've created this reality based on our previous choices and our previous actions. So to me, I think reincarnation definitely justifies all the apparent injustices that life presents. If we only lived once, it just wouldn't make sense. And this is from the Spirit's book. Death doesn't suddenly transform spirits, right? If I live a reprehensible life now, currently, it's because I'm still imperfect, right? You, all of us here on earth are imperfect. We're working on things that have been left undone in previous lives. And just because I die and come back in another life doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect or I'm going to be enlightened. Only through additional lives, additional suffering, additional consequences will I ultimately evolve And this is, as you know, if you've seen me talk before, this is one of my favorite slides. It just paints a beautiful picture, summarizes in one glance our creation and our ultimate development. Created simple and lacking knowledge in the bottom left by God, right, our Creator. Lifetime after lifetime, progressing over millennia probably, right, who knows, until we ultimately evolve into that Christ-like perfection state. If we're living on earth, guess what? We're in the bottom third, the first third. Imperfect, reprehensible is probably the wrong word, right? But we got a lot of work to do. We're still tied to material impulses, material gain, vice, if you will, things that are pleasing to our senses as opposed to our spirit, okay? As we progress over lifetimes, the farther or the more we become based in love, right? Our decisions are coming from a place of love and compassion and forgiveness, not tied to material or things that are pleasing to the senses. The more we evolve, the higher we go on this hierarchy, if you will. Make sense? Simple enough? No, not simple, right? Makes sense, but it's complicated. But here's what we have to remember: if we're on Earth, right, or any planet, I guess, as we move through this evolvement, all of us have some form of affliction. I have mine, you have yours. Behaviors we don't like, right? None of us perhaps are at the extremes, right? But we all have done things, said things, thought things that have created current problems for us. Decisions or choices in previous lives, as well as decisions from yesterday, creating our problems. Most of which, I think, are created from what Spiritism or philosophy in general would call ego and pride, right? We are our own worst enemies. We are our own worst creator of the problems that we face because we come from a place of pride or ego. And when we do that, we just create things we have to repay. So we're reminded in the gospel, according to Spiritism, that we're always the creators of our problems. Do we have control over it? Absolutely. We can shorten the issues. We can prolong the suffering, all depending on how we receive it and what we do in response to it. So whatever I'm facing today, the decision I make in response to the challenge or the affliction is going to determine the consequences to come. And if I choose to follow the example of Christ, if I choose to live by the golden rule, if you will, if I come from a place of love more often than I come from a place of my ego or my pride, I'm going to shorten my suffering. I'm going to advance or evolve at a faster pace, if you will. Still suffering, but shortening it compared to what it could be. So no matter what I decide, right or wrong, well, let's say I make bad choices and I just go down this bad path. Is it over? Am I destined to be a lower spirit forever, never to evolve? Well, the good news, right, is God lets us hit the refresh button. God gives us free will, and we can make U-turns anytime we want. Free will, I'd like to call it a gift, right? Thanks to God, we have this gift of free will, but it's really not a gift. It's a responsibility, right? And we choose how to use it. So if we choose to get course corrected, to hit refresh, if you will, to get back on track more frequently, we definitely will shorten our suffering and evolve. I have 3 hours, yeah?
2.5.
Okay, all right. I want to make sure I don't take too long. So a reminder, right? This is from the gospel as well. Free will, right? We're free to choose. We can choose wisely. We can choose poorly. Remember those cartoons back in the day? What was it called? What was it? Anyways, there's a little angel on one shoulder and a little devil with a pitchfork on the other. What cartoon was that? You probably know. All of them? They all had it?
Tom and Jerry.
Tom and Jerry, that's what it was. That's right. Right? And, here I am living my life, and there's times when this little guy over here is telling, do it. And this one's holding me back. And I know when I pick the wrong path. I know when I make bad choices. Does that stop me all the time? No, it doesn't. Does that mean I'm never going to evolve? I'm never going to be evolving spiritually? No, it just means I'm slowing myself down. And the better choices I make, right, the better my reality is going to be. How about if I just choose to go live on a deserted island by myself so I'm not tempted to do anything? Does that solve it? Absolutely not. Why?
You're not doing good, you're not doing anything.
Not tempted, right? There's no testing. There's no people to interact with. There's no...
You're not doing any good.
Exactly. You're not doing any good. You're just kind of stagnating. Awesome. I think I can stop, Peter. I mean, we go eat.
2.5 hours.
I like to refer to this as cause and effect. Yeah, in very simple terms, our choices create the consequences, and it's a cycle, right? Every moment, every present moment, right now, is creating the next and the next and the next. And the bigger those mistakes, or the poorer those choices, I should say, the poorer those experiences, the higher the consequences. There's always going to be an obligation to repay the debt, if you will. So how do we overcome affliction? How do we lessen the effect being negative? Well, Christ gave us this quite plainly, right? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbors as yourself. This is when he was being questioned and they were trying to trap him. They asked him, what's the most important law, right? And this was the answer. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. Easy said, right? Easier said for sure. So hard, right? I can say all the time that I love God and thank you, God, for life. Thank you for all of these opportunities. And yet, I go against that sometimes, right? I make bad choices. I'm not always the best to my fellow man. I'm not always up here speaking good things, right? I'm a hypocrite at times. I make mistakes. So it's easy to say this, but to put it into practice takes practice. And if we mess up and we don't do so well, we can make that U-turn, right? Where it's never, the opportunity to improve never stops. Do we take 3 steps back sometimes? Absolutely. But we always have access to this. And the more we live this on a regular basis and the more this becomes a habit, the lesser our load, right? The lighter our suffering, if you will. But again, I know this inside and out, and yet I don't always live up to it. I fail frequently. So how can we do more of this more often? How can we stay true to that and live up to that? Well, prayer is our number one friend, like you shared with us, yeah? Answer this for me. How many times have you prayed while you're doing something terrible or bad, or making a bad choice? How often have you prayed and felt bad? How often have you prayed and not had some relief to your stress? Happens occasionally. I could see it's possible, but it's hard, right? When I'm trying to connect with God, when you're trying to pray, we're usually doing what? We're usually lifting our energy. We're usually elevating our thoughts, right? What does that do when we elevate our thoughts? What are we doing? Attracting like-minded, positive, right? Our guardian angels, positive spirits. Yeah, exactly. So can we pray 20 times a day? Heck yeah. Can we pray 100 times a day? Sure. I don't do that, but I could. It's funny. 1 hour of the day, right? If you think about it, it's like 4% of 24 hours, right? So I spend 8 of those hours, 10 of those hours sometimes at work. I spend another 2 hours in my car going back and forth. I spend an hour 4 or 5 times a week in the gym. I spend who knows how many hours watching Netflix. What percent of my day do I spend praying? I guarantee you it's nowhere close to 4%. But maybe it should be. It definitely could be if I choose. And if I spend more time praying, I'm going to lift my energy and I'm going to make better choices typically. The Bible is there for us to read. TTW stands for Through the Word. It's an app, a Bible app that I do with a couple friends. It's digital, obviously. And every day there's a different chapter of the Bible. and you listen to a pastor or someone spiritual, whatever, talking about this chapter. Then you listen to the chapter actually read to you, and then you and your friends can leave 3-minute messages for each other. It's really cool. And I've been doing that for about 6 months. That, believe it or not, has helped me more than anything else in a long time, because I do it in the car while I'm driving. So in the morning, I pray, I read the gospel, I'm studying the Medium's book a little bit right now with a study group. Then I've got 2 devotionals that I read. And then, I drink my coffee, I get ready, I go to work, and then on my drive, I do that. And starting my day like that would be one of my best recommendations for each of us. Doesn't have to be listening to that app, but if you can submerge yourself in the Word of Christ, in spiritual teachings, in positive messages, you start your day in a good place, surrounded with positive energy. And sure enough, on the days I get through that quickly or I don't do it, which is rare, the day doesn't go as well. It doesn't go as smooth. So it works for me. We've got tons of Spiritist publications. You don't even have to buy the books. We got a library. Where's the library now? It used to be there. We moved in? Thanks a lot. When did we do that? Because I missed it. Been a while, right? Man, I don't pay attention. My wife is right. I don't pay attention. We got a library. You can borrow the books. You can get a lot of these books online, free PDFs. They're there for you to read, even listen to. We have study groups at the center on Tuesday nights. We have Gospel at Home available to us. If you're not familiar with that, we actually have a team that will help you learn how to do Gospel at Home, where you dedicate the same day of the week at the same time once a week. So ours is every Sunday night at 8:30. We do our Gospel at Home, all 5 of us, and the dogs and the cat are there too. They congregate with us when we do this, and we study a little bit, and that just refreshes the house, right? We hit refresh every Sunday night. We kind of cleanse the house spiritually, and we elevate the energy of the house for protection for the coming week. Weekly meetings at the center. You're here on a Thursday night. I mean, that's awesome. I bet you there's something going on tonight that's more fun, but you're here. You got in your car and you came here. Coming here is awesome. How many of you feel that energy when you walk in the door? Lifts you up, yeah? It does me every time. And on the weekends, the Caravan of Love is still going strong. You can go help feed the homeless. You can go sing in the retirement homes. There's so many different things that we have resources that can help raise us up and help us reduce our suffering. So we talked about prayer. Peter mentioned this a little bit earlier, right? It's not the words, it's not the place, it's not on your knees, it's not with another person, right? It's you and God connected with your thoughts, right? From the heart, not. I remember when I was a kid, I grew up Catholic, and I could say a Hail Mary. I mean, I could do a rosary like that because I just whipped right through it, right? Because it was all rote memorization. So you go to confession, the priest gives you penance, and I was done quick because I was really fast. But it didn't do anything for me, right? It was not heartfelt. The whole idea here is the feelings, the connection, the sincerity. Make sense? Awesome. All right, so through prayer, we've talked about this, right? We're calling ourselves, we become a host of good, we're calling a bunch of hosts of good spirits, right? They inspire us, they lift us up. When we fall morally, we simply need to ask for help and try to improve. We can make that U-turn. We can hit that refresh button. Help is always there for us. We're never alone. We each have a guardian angel, if you will, right? That's there for us. They might drift from us. They might be doing other things. It's not like they spend 24/7 with us. But whenever we reach out, whenever we try, whenever we ask, they're there to help us. But we have to listen. We got to listen to the good spirit, not the negative one, right? And sometimes that's hard.
No, it's nice to reinforce that, because people think that because we have guardian angels all the time, they are all the time with us, or even the high spirits, they have something to do. If you don't call them, they will not gonna come.
And if you ignore them frequently, they
pray. If you don't call them, they will not gonna answer.
Yep, I like that. You're right. So
Not necessarily going to save us either.
Well, they're not going to give up on us. They're going to try to influence us, give us good advice.
They're not there to save us.
No, we make the decision, yeah?
Exactly.
Ultimately, it's up to us. Yes, I agree. Ultimately, though, God's always going to grant not what we want necessarily, right? But what we need if we ask with trust. Don't spend too much time thinking about negative things, but if you think about times when we pray, when things aren't going right? I can think of instances in my life where I prayed for specific outcomes. And a lot of times those outcomes didn't happen. But ultimately, good things happen. So as I'm praying to God to help me with a situation, what I think I'm really praying for, and this is in the Spirit's book, I'm praying for God to help give me courage to face the adversity. However, God, this is supposed to work out, whatever is the best outcome, give me courage to go through the pain. Give me patience to not rush into bad decisions, and give me resignation to accept that I've created this in some way. It's coming back to me as a result or a consequence of previous actions. And you get through it. A great example of this for me is I was married once before. Went through a terrible, painful experience. Wasn't my idea. I felt like the end of the road, how could this woman leave me? I'm such a nice guy, right? But trust me, I contributed. The point is, I was heartbroken. And I prayed to God, please don't let this be. Well, guess what? We got divorced and I went back to school and I lived my life. Now that's over 30, it's got to be almost 30 years ago. Today, I'm married to the most amazing woman. I have a wonderful family. And I couldn't have gotten to that without going through the pain. So that to me was an unanswered prayer that was really answered. Does that make sense? All right, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the point is, what we want, or what we think is best for us, isn't always what we get, right?
What do you think that you're going to get when you ask for courage, patience, and resignation? It's an instant bullshit?
No. But again, this I'm reading on a screen, right? In everyday life, is like, come on, God, give it to me, man, right? Why me, right?
He's giving you tests.
I get it. But it's easier said than done. But this is ultimately what's going to happen. So it all worked out for me. I got no complaints. Thank you, God, right? So we're encouraged then to renew ourselves, right? In goodness at every moment, at every opportunity, doing the right thing, right? Coming from a place of love, coming from a place of forgiveness, of compassion, is going to reduce that temptation for us to be driven by our ego, our pride, our aggressiveness. And I'm getting pretty good at this, except on the highway. I'm sorry. I'm a little aggressive on the highway sometimes. It's a problem for me, man. Especially with all that construction, man. Oh my goodness. 3 windshields in like 18 months from all the rocks from the trucks. But that's probably because I'm driving too close to the truck, right? It's my fault. Not there. Slow down. That's right. Essentially, if we can do more and more of that, we're going to reduce some of our bad moral habits, which is going to allow us to have more harmony and a healthy pathway. And again, easier said than done, but it just baby steps, little by little. And this quote's from a Chico Xavier. Though nobody can go back and make a new beginning, anyone can start over and make a new ending, right? Hit refresh, make a U-turn, right? It's so true. I shouldn't say that. The past matters. The past got me here. But my future is unwritten. I have the ability to change the outcome. You have the ability to change the outcome. And the more we choose from a place of love, the more we follow the example of Christ, the better that ending's going to be. And this is the one slide I can take credit for. I can't even take credit for it, actually. Dan Sullivan is the guy's name. Different books I've read. This one's called Gap in the Gain, right? The reason I share this slide with you is I've been coming to Spiritist centers now almost 20 years, probably just over 20 years. I've been speaking at this center since the twins were born, and they're going to be 16, right? Since before they were born. There's been different periods in my life when I almost stopped volunteering, when I almost stopped speaking, right? Because I felt like a hypocrite. I get up here and I talk and I share this knowledge with you. And then I go out in the parking lot and I cut somebody off or I make bad choices, right? I'm getting better. I'm improving. And that's why I share this slide with you. Back in those days when I was thinking about failing, right? I was living in what this guy Dan calls the gap, right? Gap, think about goals or ideals, right? We have these destinations that we want to hit, right? Whatever they might be. And we work and we work and we work and we accomplish a lot of things, but we never get to the goal. Think of the goal as the horizon, right? You're in a plane or you're driving and the horizon, what does the horizon do? I move, it moves, right? I'm never going to reach the horizon, right? It's unattainable. It's an ideal. It's a goal. When I live in the gap, when those days when I felt like a hypocrite and I was going to stop speaking, things like that, or stop coming, what I was doing was looking at my lack of progress, my failure of reaching an ideal that I'm never going to reach perhaps. So I lived in this void. I lived in this space of unhappiness. If you can take this gain mindset, don't look where you haven't gone. Stop for a minute and look where you've been and the progress that you've made. If you live in this thing called the gain, you're always making progress. And that's how it is for us in this life. Think about 100 lives ago. Right? We don't remember them. Thankfully, God lets us forget all the mistakes we made. Right? But if we could go back and see where we are today, how our spirit has evolved and how we're progressing, right? We could celebrate that. We should celebrate that. And take that excitement and take that success to drive us to do even more. Easy enough, right? Awesome. But I love this guy, Dan Sullivan, and Benjamin Hardy is the author, the co-writer. Good stuff. So the relative freedom that God gave us, it's destined for this awakening, right? We can go live on that island. We can live under a rock. We can ignore it. We can quit. We can stop coming to the center. We can take all these breaks. But ultimately, right, we're destined for an awakening, right? Through our own efforts and our own trials. Eventually, we are all going to evolve. We're all going to grow. And the more we try, the more we're going to achieve. And the faster and the less suffering is going to result from it. When we connect ourselves with our life, when we stop and we analyze, when we look and just analyze, like oh man, I forget his name now. Forgive me. Anyways, there's a great story and advice from a priest, from a spirit way back in the day, that talks about when you put your head on the pillow at night, briefly reflect about your day. What could you have done differently? What could you have? Yes. Come on, come finish for me. That's exactly the guy.
What's the name?
St. Augustine. Sorry, Peter wasn't speaking up. If you look back on your day, you understand perhaps what you could have done differently, and then you make a plan for tomorrow, right? What they're telling us here is if we take that self-analysis, we can clearly see what we've brought on ourselves by our previous choices, or what's been offered to us by God as an opportunity, as a mission, right? If we really look, right, if I stop and think about it, I can tell you exactly choices I've made that created some of the problems I'm facing today, right? So instead of living in the gap, right, and complaining or thinking of yourself as a failure, look on your day and cherish the opportunities you were given and make a plan for tomorrow to do even better. Again, easy to say. Leon Denis is quoted with this, and I love this. The more that we evolve, the more we almost regret not having suffered enough. Could you imagine? Wanting to suffer more. It's beautiful, but crazy at the same time, right? The rational me, the material me says, I don't want to suffer. Whatever I can do, I'm going to dodge it. I'm going to get out of the way. But the person, the spirit, the spiritist in me knows that the more I suffer, right, through the afflictions that I've created, the harder I work. Now, the shorter the trip's going to be. Does that make sense? Right? But who wants to suffer? But suffering is where it's at, right? Not that I'm a sadist or anything like that, but the more hardship I face in this life and I work through it positively, the more I'm going to advance on this path to perfection. So in the gospel, we're reminded that faith is the mother of all virtues, but it has to be active in order to be productive, right? We can't just say we have faith. We have to act out faith. It goes on to tell us that divine inspiration from God will awaken these noble instincts in us. So the more we can connect, the more we can pray, the more that we can strive for this inspiration, the more it's going to lead us towards the good and regenerative state. It's effort, it's work. We can't just go through life saying we have faith. We have to have faith, and we have to work regularly to advance. I have a conversation frequently with a buddy of mine, one of the guys I do that through the Word, and he says I'm wrong, right? And I don't get into discussions or arguments, but that traditional belief that just believing in God, just believing in Christ is our ticket to heaven. We don't have to work for it. We don't have to try, right? We've already been forgiven. And don't get me wrong, that's beautiful, and I like that story. But ultimately, what we know as a result of the Spiritist doctrine, as a result of the law of reincarnation, we know that we evolve and grow based on our works, or we stagnate and slow down and incur more suffering as a result of not working. So works are really important. Our thoughts, our words turn into actions, and our actions define our character. And the more we can elevate those thoughts in faith, the better those thoughts, words, and actions are going to be. So Spiritism explains the cause of all of our suffering, not just ours, but the entire world. And as I've already stated, we won't spend too much time on this. If we can reduce our ties to materialism, if we can reduce chasing or striving for the things that are pleasing to our senses and spend more time for the things that are appeasing or appealing to our soul, that come from a place of love, the better life is going to be today and tomorrow. We're reminded also that there's just one God. God created all the life and continues to create. And we're all created simple and lacking knowledge, just like that slide I showed you earlier. Pure spirits are the most evolved, right? To be in life. Christ is the most pure spirit that walked the earth. And our destiny, believe it or not, is becoming a pure spirit. Christlike perfection is our destiny. How long it takes, how much suffering is involved, how many lifetimes it takes is totally up to us and the choices that we make. Peter's very close. I have a lot longer time to go, right? Right. I love this slide, and I think this is one of Sabrina's slides, if I remember correctly, from way back when. And I used to speak to this similar to reincarnation, right? We're reborn, but I look at it differently now, right? The more I study, the more I learn. The butterfly goes through a metamorphosis from a caterpillar, right, into a cocoon, into the butterfly. They actually change, like into a different creature, right? They go from that rudimentary being or that death state into this beautiful creature, right? Almost perfect, right? So I don't show you this picture to make you think that life after life takes you from wherever you are now to this perfect thing, right? But ultimately the goal, right, is to evolve to this beautiful thing, right? With our free will, with our choice, and go through all those different stages. Little by little, we transform. We don't just have this metamorphosis where we go from that cocoon to a butterfly, but over time, we evolve into this pure spirit. And we do that with the help of our friends and our enemies, right? We all have people in our lives that we love. We all are loved by people. We all have people that don't think so much of us, perhaps, or we don't think so much of them. We cannot grow, we cannot evolve without those relationships. We can't live on the island or under a bridge and not grow, right? We have to interact. So as I spend time daily, other people are helping me and I'm helping other people. You guys showing up tonight, me preparing this talk helps me. Hopefully you got something out of it today that you can take home and put into practice. But we all count on each other. We all help each other. And we all are in certain circles of spirits that have been together before. Think about the most difficult person in your life, and that's probably a spirit that you've had a conflict in with the past. You haven't worked it out yet. Right? It's an opportunity to bury the hatchet, if you will. Think about that friend that's more like a brother to you, right? Or a father to you, but not really related. There's probably a connection there, and you're in each other's life again to continue to grow together. And the best example of all of this, right? When we're not sure, when we get confused, when we get down, is just simply remember Christ and the way he lived, right? Don't get me wrong, his crucifixion, his resurrection, all of that is important. But most importantly, Christ showed us how to live. He walked the earth like a man. He faced temptation. He faced hatred. He was murdered. And on the cross, as he was dying, he forgave his persecutors, right? God, they don't know what they do. Forgive them, right? So at our worst, at our lowest, let's remember that we can hit refresh, we can make that U-turn, and we can do our best to follow that rule that he gave us, right? So thank you for your attention. I appreciate the opportunity to present what I was asked to prepare, and may God bless you on your way home tonight. Is Valdo here? No?
Hit refresh.
I'm going to hit refresh. You want me to do vibrations then, or you want to do vibrations? I'm going to do vibrations? Okay. So if we could have some vibration type music, I will try. You sure? These guys are probably tired of my voice. No? All right. We're going to play some music, and I'm going to lead us, try to lead us into a guided meditation. And then we will have passes, and then coffee and food if you want afterwards. So let's relax. The lecture's over. We didn't take 3 hours like I thought. Just relax in your chair. Relax your muscles. Breathe in. Let it out. And just join me as I try to walk us through this guided meditation. So, as we talk about refreshing, as we talk about making a U-turn, as we talk about the light and love of Christ and being our guide and our inspiration, let's imagine, or envision, not imagine, let's envision that love of Christ, that peace of Christ, that example of forgiveness and compassion over our heads, right in the center of this big room that we're in. A big ball of bright, warm light, radiant, warm. Can you feel it? Touching your skin. Just soothing and comforting. The light embracing you, enveloping you in this huge hug of Christ's love, of Christ's peace. So lovely that you're lifted almost out of your chair. You just feel weightless, free, loved, cared for, forgiven. Can you hear him? You are loved. You are destined for perfection. Don't worry about yesterday. Spend your time right here, right now, in this precious moment, embraced by his love, inspired by his example. And as you let that love soak into your very being, also release and share it with a person to your left, to your right. Send some up here towards me, some behind you to the folks in the back. And together, in communion with that love and that peace, let us radiate it out to the community that surrounds us. To those in need, to those in pain, to those perhaps nearing the end of this life. Let them feel this embrace of Christ's love and peace. And as you leave here tonight after your pass, take some of this with you. Keep a little bit in your heart. And let that be your pilot light, to be the spark for the rest of the week. Let that love and light of Christ live in you and shine through you and touch all of those that you come into contact with. Be an example of that love. Be a giver of that love. Forgive yourself, forgive others, and just truly walk in faith that everything that you need has been provided. All you need to do is receive it. Let yourself receive the gift of that love and use that responsibility of free will to choose to emulate that love as much as possible. So my friends, I leave you with that simple message and a wish for you to go in peace and walk with love and light in your heart this week until we meet again.